This is the second episode of the Jack and Jared podcast. Thank you for tuning in, Mom and Mrs. Tenenbaum. Hopefully we have a couple more guests this go around. We have a couple things planned to talk about, and then a goal of mine for the podcast was kind of to be conversational and see where conversations went instead of having a lot of talking points completely planned. Today, one of the things that we wanted to mention or talk about was goal setting. I've recently been working with a coach of mine that's really changed my perspective a bit on goal setting. It's my third or fourth time working with a coach. This is my second full round of coaching. A couple have been individual one session things. My coach last week really just had me break down my goals into smaller goals, until there was really actionable steps. And I don't know if that's ever been brought about to me before and just didn't resonate, or this time it just resonated, but it hit me this time that you can take a big step back and think of your goal. So one of my goals actually, as I was thinking about them, was to consistently record podcasts with you for the entire year. Once I have that goal, breaking it down into smaller goals and so forth.
And so, Jeremy, why don't you talk a little bit about why that was an actual goal of yours? What value did you foresee that trying to accomplish that goal would provide for you, and therefore made you recognize that this is something worth your energy and would provide that, type of fulfillment by pursuing it?
Great question. I think I actually didn't really think about it too much until you just posited the question. I think sometimes I get overwhelmed with how much that I think I have to do. And other times I think I have everything taken care of and I just have to wait. When you have the large goals and then you break them down, I realize that there's always something I can be doing and something I can be tackling or working towards. So the big goal of having 52 podcasts recorded for the year is awesome, but then breaking that down, what can I do this week? What can I do to plan for next month? Should I have all of our topics laid out? Should I have whatever it might be? And then once you break it down, if I didn't break it down, I might have said, okay, recording 52 weeks, that's easy. Just go and meet up with Jack and record every 52 weeks. But when you break it down, you just realize that there's more involved.
Yeah, and I think the act of actually setting goals and creating milestones so that you are actually making traction towards reaching that macro goal is huge. Something that I know I have dealt with personally is kind of the tension of setting goals that sound good, or maybe sound good to other people, especially, or society, versus goals that actually get you to where you want in life.
What would you say is a goal that sounds good?
Make a lot of money. My goal is to make a lot of money, drive a certain car, have a certain thing, have the new phone, the new iPhone, whatever it is. And there's nothing wrong with if that actually is a goal of yours. But if you accomplish those goals and it doesn't provide some source of fulfillment for you, then that might be concerning, because you can only channel your energy into so many things. And so to be channeling it in something that doesn't necessarily do anything for you, it doesn't provide the level of fulfillment or happiness or get you on a path to closer to getting those other things, that's what I realized by setting goals that didn't actually mean anything to me, but I felt like they should mean something to me because of societal pressures, family pressures, whatever it was, that it can be a real drain on your limited resources, particularly your energy and your time, to be chasing something that at the end of the day doesn't help you sleep better, doesn't make you feel more excited to wake up in the morning, doesn't actually get you going.
So what would you say is a good goal, or what do you think is involved to make a goal better?
So I think an example that I experience in this regard is the idea of people. I set for myself the goal of meditating regularly. It sounds good. I think most people are familiar with the benefits of meditation or mindfulness, or those types of similar practices. However, meditation is a tool. I don't think it really should be the goal in and of itself. And it's a tool, in my opinion, to help you to be more at ease with your emotions, with your energy, to allow yourself a more controlled way to filter your emotions or your sensations. Whether you're getting into tense conversations with people you work with or people that you care deeply about, relationships or things like that, I think meditation is a great tool to practice, to use, so that when you get into those other situations, you're more able to process what's going on.
So I think I followed in the beginning, but then I think I might have lost you. So is practicing meditation regularly a good goal?
I don't think in and of itself is a good goal. I think it's a good habit, but I think the goal is, for me at least, and the reason I meditate daily is I want to be in control of my emotions, and I don't want my emotions to be in control of me. And so I use the opportunity to meditate daily to practice recognizing the sensations I'm feeling, to recognize how active my brain is and how hard it can be to shut it off. And so my and we may be getting into a little bit of semantics here, but when I'm trying to create the habit of meditating regularly, and that can be a goal of itself, that is a micro goal. The macro goal,
It's like an
in my
actionable step.
exactly, it's
Yeah.
the actionable step, but the finish line, if there is even a finish line in a lot of these things, but the aspiration is to be more zen as a human being, so that whether it is tough times because of illness or stresses of job, or things just don't always go your way, but when those things don't go your way, to be able to process what's happening in a way that allows you to not enter a dark space, so that you can still be productive, you can still be a valuable member of your friend group, of your family, and things like that. So my goal is actually to be that person that can handle stressful situations. And the way I want to achieve that goal is through meditation, or that's how I think is one of the actionable steps I can use to achieving that goal.
Yep, I like that. So to relate it to kind of like what I was thinking about with my coach, a goal might be I want to be more in control of my emotions. And then when you break that goal down, how am I going to reach that? I'm going to meditate weekly. I'm going to eat healthy, whatever. And then you break those. How are you going to eat, or how are you going to meditate weekly? I'm going to meditate at 7 a.m. after I brush my teeth, or I'm going to habit stack. And then basically breaking down all of the goals until you just know the exact actionable steps to take it. But one more thing, sorry, just before I forget, is have you ever heard of a SMART goal?
Continue.
It's specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. And it's funny, there's definitely things that from teaching that I think were a complete waste, but that's something from teaching that I think is actually a really good tool to use. And I've actually heard it a little bit in business as well. So SMART goal: specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. Your goal should hopefully try to incorporate all of those aspects, and I might be a little off with my like explanation of them, but an example goal would maybe be I want to be more in control of my emotions during stress by meditating when I'm feeling angst come on at least 4 of 5 times that I'm tested by the spring. So you see like the couple elements that I'm adding, like having a timely goal. Just having a goal is good, but if the goal is 6 months from now or 1 year or 10 years, that can make it very different. Making sure it's attainable, that like you can actually get there and that it's realistic. It's not like I can fly by tomorrow. Specific was a little bit hard, but that you get the general gist, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think what you touched upon is really important. You can't set goals that, well, there are some goals that are so aspirational that a certain group of people find that truly motivating. The Elon Musk of the world can perhaps set the goals of he wants to get people to Mars. But us, that is so aspirational that it can be potentially just too daunting, too intimidating to go through. So I really like what you're talking here. One of the things I want to go into more depth about, because it's something that I personally have dealt with, and I've talked to people, and it gets come up all the time, is the timely thing, and kind of extending on that a little bit of creating deadlines, creating time, like actually marking your calendar, whether it's just writing it on a piece of paper that you're going to look at, or actually marking your calendar instead of just having it in your head or just not having a goal, that you're going to do certain things at a certain time period. I have a Sorry, I just want to do this quick end. So I have a friend who, him and someone he knows, they have a goal of getting an investment property, something that they want to do for their own financial well-being and things like that. But the rigors of life, it appears from the conversations of them, have continually interrupted that goal. It's something that keeps getting pushed aside. His partner had kids, then had a second kid. Then his wife was dealing with something that was legitimate. And so that pushed things back. And there are enormous and legitimate reasons that come up in people's lives that are road bumps in them. And these don't need to be like seriously negative things like health crises and stuff, but it's just the everyday workings of having a normal life. But if you never take the time to realize that, okay, I want to do this in 3 months or 6 months or whatever your time period is, I've seen personally that all of a sudden 3 months, 6 months, a year, 2 years can go by and you never have actually made progress towards it, because in the back of your mind, it's always like, well, I'll do it when I have the time. I'll do it when things calm down. And guess what? Things will never really calm down like that. Mm-hmm. In my opinion, at least, yeah.
I agree completely. And I think what really relates to me is like, if we said we wanted to talk for an hour, we would talk for an hour. If we said we had to talk for 2 hours, we would talk for 2 hours. But you usually just end up meeting the deadline because that's what you do. If you give yourself 3 hours to clean your room, or if you give yourself 5 days to clean your room, you're going to take the whole amount of time both times, and you're going to get pretty similar results. You just end up, I feel like you just go towards the deadline.
Yeah, there's actually a theory, and Parkinson's law states that the amount of time that you have to perform a task is the amount of time it will take you to complete the task. In other words, if something should be done in a day, it will be done in 24 hours. If you give yourself 2 days, a week, it'll be done in that time period. And I think we've all been in this situation, whether it's school and having to write papers or study for an exam, or having to clean your room when you're younger and your parents are going to get home, or maybe a significant other is going to come home and you just want to look half decent to them. This is something that I think everyone has experienced in some fashion, where you have a week to do something and all of a sudden it's the last day, it's the last couple of hours, and boom, you get it done. And And I think that, and that's another reason why I think actually when you said like timely, I wanted to expand upon that because it's such an easy thing to fix just by consciously making a deadline or just marking your calendar or something like that. It can be fixed. Like this issue can be fixed. You can be so much more productive instead of you wanting to, like, let's say you want to write and start blogging. Instead of your goal being like to write an article every week, maybe your goal should be to write 200 pages every day or something like that. Because if you wait every week to do it, I imagine a lot of people, especially if they haven't built the habit, are going to wait the last couple of days or so. And so, and then the other thing I want to touch upon is none of this stuff will work unless you're being honest with yourself. And I know that personally, it's so easy, especially if you're not writing things down, to say, oh, I will do that, or blah, blah, blah. And then the time comes and you're like, well, you know what? I deserve to give myself more time. I did all this other stuff. Or even worse, you convince yourself that it's actually not a goal of yours because you feel the pressure of doing it. And so developing, which is really can be really hard to do, developing that integrity with yourself and that honesty with yourself so that you can actually look yourself in the mirror and be like, you said you were going to eat healthy and you weren't going to cheat on your meal. And last night you ordered a pizza instead of cooking the chicken breast in your fridge. You said you were going to meditate and you did it. And then you just tell yourself, just like, well, it's not going to be beach season for 6 months. I don't really care about it. Or, how important does being mindfulness really matter? But having those conversations with yourself of being, no, this is something that even when things get stressful, I know I want to work on. And that can be hard to develop over time, especially as you're pushing yourself to become better and better.
Definitely. Just something else I wanted to mention a little bit before. You were saying how like an aspirational goal for Elon Musk, he can say he wants to get people on Mars, but for a normal person, that might not be the best goal to have. I thought that was just interesting because I agree. But my coach last week, I have like a bunch of SMART goals, but then he also did say it's important to kind of have like one or two just really outlandish goals, just to kind of like have them, I guess. So like one of his goals, I think, is like to own half the real estate in Texas or something. And I think one of mine, it's interesting when you get put onto the spot and see like what comes to your mind. What came to mind first was I thought it was a little interesting. It was like something that I used to think when I was like 8 years old, and basically kind of related to what you're saying before, like society kind of told me it wasn't realistic, or life kind of told me it wasn't realistic, and I've given it up as a goal. And he kind of mentioned to know, like, keep that as a goal. It might not be the most attainable one, but like still have it there just for you to be aware of it, kind of. And it's something you can kind of work towards if all of this other stuff didn't happen. And I don't know. I don't know if I 100% am behind that kind of like mentality, but I did like it a little bit of just like having a pretty outlandish goal just to have.
So I what you touched upon, I think is really smart, and there's a few things I want to add. First, your coach that says he wants to own half the real estate or whatever, I think, and I imagine that he first began to realize and created a real internal value system towards real estate, and I imagine what it can do for him, both probably financially and quality of life and things like that. And when I say not necessarily setting truly incredibly aspirational goals, I think there's a lot of people out there, and I fell into this camp for a little bit, that they really don't even know what they want in life. If you tell them what aspirational goal, like a goal like what your coach is saying, like something truly that in 30 years you may have made progress towards, but may even take longer than that. I think there is a large amount of people that wouldn't even be able to put something on it. And for them to have a goal that isn't linked to a value system that they've created that will get them to a phase of life that will create a level of fulfillment for them, I think it may cause them to say some of these goals that they don't actually meet, or don't actually do anything. And yeah, go ahead, Jeremy.
Yeah, so that kind of reminds me of something that kind of makes me go in circles, and I kind of get like lost of like, wait, what am I trying to do? A book that I read last year, maybe 2 years ago now, is called Letting Go. And he kind of mentioned about like your goals and what you're trying to do. And when you ask someone like what their goal is, something that they mentioned in the book that I've like done a few times with people over the last couple of years, and every time the person I do it with goes like, whoa, that was pretty cool exercise. You go like, why? You just keep saying why. So yep. I want to be I want to go to Harvard. Why? Because I want to get a good job. Why? Because I want to make $200,000 a year. Why? Because I want to get a Mercedes. Why? And then when you go down all the way to why, the answer is usually to feel good, or to feel loved, or to feel accomplished. And then what he says in the book is like, you can just feel that way. Like your feeling is kind of back to like why I meditate as well, is if you meditate and you're really good at your meditation practice, you can control your emotions, you can control how you feel. A lot of it is intent and choice. So do you need the car and the job and the money and the wife and the stability to feel good? Or can you just feel good? But that's where I kind of go, well, then why do we do anything? Because if you just, I don't know, then I get kind of lost of like, why aren't we doing anything? Or what's the point of a goal? Sorry, I was putting my hand down. What's the point of a goal, or why do I do anything? And I kind of get lost. Like, you need to have goals, otherwise you do nothing. And then it's like, how do you come up with your goals? But then I think over the last couple of years, my goals have shifted a lot more from personal to more societal, of like, I want a lot of people to be I want to help get 100 people happy. It's not just like my personal whatever.
Yeah, you have to do something in life. Sure, you could do nothing, but I think it's a disservice to yourself and not at least trying to play a hand, not trying to do something significant. So you have to do something, or at least I would go crazy if I didn't have something to occupy at least the majority of the day.
Right.
And so you have to do something. And the other thing I was going to say about goals and truly aspirational ones are that one of the great things about them, no matter what level they are, is if you're honest with yourself every night and every morning, you can think about it, you can meditate, you can visualize whatever, and you can ask yourself, what did I do today, or what did I do yesterday that got me one step closer to that goal? And there's a lot of clear and obvious ones, but if it's being more physically healthy, there's eating involved, there's exercising, there's also mental health training, where there's meditation and things that you can do. And if every day you're saying to yourself, for lunch, I had a clean salad, and for lunch or for dinner, I had this and it was healthy and whatever, and I exercised and I stretched and I do whatever, and you can keep saying that every day. And you can actually say to yourself, like, the exercises I'm doing, I'm pushing myself. I'm going for that one more lap around the track, or I am doing another couple of minutes, or whatever it is. Like, you can actually measure, not objectively, but you can measure that you're getting yourself closer to being physically fit, that you've gone X amount of days without putting sugar back into your diet, or whatever it is. And with the truly aspirational things, it's great. It's absolutely amazing that perhaps someone like Elon Musk can be like, I read this book on how to build a rocket, whatever. I talked to this person. And sometimes really getting closer is really just having one conversation with someone, reading one article, just writing some things down, giving yourself 20 minutes to do that. But at the same time, if it's truly too aspirational and you don't know where to start, and you don't know if it's going to give you some level of fulfillment, it can be really difficult to every day be working towards it, because it can be so intimidating, and you don't actually know if the process, which is a cliche that people talk about all the time, that it's more about the process than the goal, that you have to fall in love with the process of working on whatever.
Trust the process.
Yeah. Well, I'll trust I'll trust the process in a few more years when I can look back on a championship. But it's, all I'm trying to point at is, and I think everyone must have felt this way at some point, right? I hope they have, where you can look at yourself in the mirror, and whether it's studying for a big test, or I went to law school and practiced law, you're taking the bar exam, looking yourself in the mirror every night or in the morning and be like, I studied really hard yesterday, and I'm going to do that again today. And I'm going to be one step closer to acing that final, passing the bar license, or things like that. And that's the thing that I'm cautionary about setting truly aspirational goals, that they can be so daunting and so disconnected from what you as a human being desire in terms of like providing fulfillment, that it can be hard to be making progress towards it every day, because it's just disconnected from your life and what makes you happy and what gives you passion.
Right. You said like 20 different things that I kind of wanted, or that I wanted to talk about, and they're all really related. So hopefully
you gotta shut me up, Jeremy. You know me.
I'm they're all related. Hopefully I can just like kind of mesh them together and make sense. But basically, I like the idea of visualization. I think is super important. I read this recently and I loved it. It's basically like your brain is like a homing missile. And if you're not familiar with how a homing missile works, because I wasn't really familiar with it, it doesn't know what its target is when it leaves. Or it knows what the target is, but it doesn't know how to reach the target when you launch the missile. And if you're not familiar with even what a homing missile is, it's one that like automatically hits the target. So the way it does it, though, is basically through a lot of mistakes. And basically, the more mistakes that it makes, the more it can correct itself and fine-tune to get more on target. So your brain, from what I've heard and like read, and I'm sure there's some research behind it, I'm sure other people go like, no, that sounds bullshit. But basically, your brain is kind of like a homing missile, and your brain knows how to get to the goal eventually. It just knows how to do it. So when you visualize every day and you have the eyes on the prize, or your mind on the prize, your brain you're not going to go there directly. You're not going to instantly get your goal, but your brain will adjust every day and kind of like automatically get you there. Obviously, you're going to like have to do stuff. Hopefully that made sense a little bit, but like there's really, I think, like some scientific backing behind why like thinking of your goal works too. The more you think about it, you just kind of go towards it.
Yeah, it's manifestation. And I want to get you to talk a little bit more about visualization, because it's something that successful people talk about all the time or regularly. A example that I've seen posted is Jim Carrey wrote himself $1 million check and put it in his wallet and looked at it every day until he got the role in The Mask or one of the Ace Ventura movies and reached his goal. But he visualized it. He wrote it down and it manifested itself. And I, a couple of months ago, read a book called The Miracle Morning. And in it, it says that every morning you can jumpstart your morning by doing 7 things. Savers. It's scribing, so journaling. A, affirmations. V, visualization. E, exercise. R, reading. And S, silence, so meditation. And visualization is actually the hardest thing. Affirmations sound kind of funny. You look in the mirror, you say something to yourself, especially the first couple of times you do it. You're like, this is a bit cheesy, but
I'm the man.
Yeah, I'm the man. I can do this. Yeah, whatever it is. But what I want to talk about is, I think visualization can be intimidating, and it was for me for a time, because it can be really hard to visualize some of these goals, or to actually visualize yourself like doing some of these things. And so what have you found worked for you to allow yourself to better visualize either micro goals or macro goals, but to get into the practice of having that meditation, to train that honing missile, as you say, to know where the target is, or to at least be able to envision, what the target is. What, has there anything that you found that worked for you for that?
That's a tough one. And I don't want to come off like I'm an expert at it, or like I really know. I think like starting small is really it. And like the first couple times when same with like the affirmations, it's weird. The first times you try and visualize, it might be weird, and you might not be able to visualize anything. And I feel like to not get discouraged and to keep on trying, eventually it'll click, and then you'll kind of like be able to do it. And like I think starting off, I'm trying to remember all of like the practices I did. Maybe next time I'll like write some stuff down before.
So yeah, let me jump in real quick, because this isn't as macro, but I think it may give you something to jump off of. So some of the big stuff was very difficult for me, but what I started doing that I actually found helpful was kind of doing a diagnostic of my day and my habits. Where in my day did I feel stress? Where in my day did my productivity suffer potentially because of that stress? Or where did like my energy get zapped from? And I started kind of visualizing myself overcoming those things. And that was actually very helpful. So an easy one for a lot of people, and for me, was after lunch, get a little, what I call like the itis. You get like a little tired, you need like that extra cup of coffee. It can be easy to like just not fall asleep, but go in the chair and zone out. Or a bunch of the emails come in from your boss or your colleagues, or your significant other or family members texting you about something that you'd rather not deal with, and so you're getting those text messages. And so I actually started visualizing those things happening and seeing myself take a deep breath when I'm getting the emails, the stressful emails, and replying to them and getting on with my day. I visualized myself having lunch, eating a healthier lunch, so I wouldn't be weighed down as much, and getting right back to work. I visualized myself feeling stressed and not having the urge to like pick up my phone to go on social media or other things that like waste time. And that was, and I still suffer with the visualization thing. It's still something that is hard for me. I do it regularly, but I have to break it down into smaller things, like what I'm saying, like overcoming these things, because visualizing, starting a company or hitting certain mile markers, whether it's financial or personal, whatever, can be like not intimidating, but it's just so amorphous that like you don't even know what you're actually visualizing. It's just a blob.
Yeah.
And I was wondering if that gave you any ideas for anything that like worked for you that you could share with everyone.
Nothing great, unfortunately, that I can share. Hopefully, we'll definitely bring this up another time. But I think what you did say that resonated a bit with me. It's difficult to visualize these goals, or what I just thought is because they're like business goals are kind of like they're not straightforward. So as you were talking, what came to me. What's easiest for me to visualize is when I have like physical goals. So one of my goals coming up next month, I'm trying to run 100 miles in a weekend. And basically, like I actually just read an article, it might have been today, because like I'm ready to run it. I can see myself running the 100 miles. I'm pretty good with my body. I've been running. I ran my first marathon last year, and right now I'm at a point where I can kind of just run 20 miles and not really be too tired, have like an hour of recovery, and kind of like go at it again. And in the article I read this morning, one of the most important parts the guy said was like, it's not like run this many miles this day, do this stretching, do this, and you'll know you're good to run the 100 miles. He said, if you can visualize yourself running and you can see yourself doing it, then you can probably do it. He said that was the most important thing, which is kind of what we're alluding to a little bit, is like, once you can see it, you just know that it's attainable. You know you can do it. So I guess it is hard to maybe maybe one of the hard things with visualization might be you don't want to know you can do it, or you're scared to know you can do it, because once you see it, you might be like, oh shit, I can really do this if I want. And so sometimes, and it alludes a little bit to what you said before too with goal setting, is like a lot of times people don't know what their goals are. I agree, and a lot of times people are scared to reach their goals. They say they want a lot of money, but they don't want to give up their this or their that or whatever. And a lot of time, I think that's why people don't always get to see their goal, is because they know it's not going to be exactly what they thought.
Yeah, and you touched on something that really had a light bulb go off for me. And by visualizing these, whatever your goals are, it should be creating a belief that it's possible. And that's like another thing that I see repeatedly successful people say, that first you have to believe it's possible, that you can do it beforehand. And there's a quote, I think Henry Ford said it, is whether you believe you can or you can't, you're probably right. And that took me a really long time to actually understand that. And to me, what that quote means is, if you believe you can, then you'll put the energy and the resources behind it to complete it. If you believe you can't, then you won't put the energy and the resources behind it, and therefore you won't complete it. And so believing you can and visualizing and actually coming like one with that belief, where you're like, that's me in a week, a month, a year, 10 years, however long it is, but I can complete that. I think is the first step to believing it's possible. And I think an example of it that in real life is the 4-minute mile. So there's this gentleman, Roger Bannister. He was the first person to complete a 4-minute mile. And before he did it, no one had done it. And people thought that the human body wasn't capable of running a 4-minute mile. People had tried countless times. No one was able to do it. And Roger Bannister, in 1954, was actually the first person to break to run a 4-minute mile. And
almost a bunch of people can, right, or something.
And now hundreds and hundreds of people have done it. But not just that, within months, just 2 months of him doing it, 2 other runners ran it. So let's think about this for a second. People genuinely thought that this would never be able to happen. And then it happened. And all of a sudden, there's a floodgate opens up, and so many other people are doing it. And I think the logical conclusion is that people just started to believe it was possible, that, hey, Roger Bannister did it, I can do it too. And I think that's really powerful.
So we're going to segue into some of the weird shit that I believe. And I think we should maybe try and wrap it up in a little bit, just because we're touching upon an hour. And want to save some stuff to talk about, and don't want to go too long for our moms, because they have other stuff to do too. But shit, I just blanked. What the hell was I just saying? Or what did you
were going to compliment me on my beautiful articulation of visualization and beliefs. I don't know. I was talking about the 4-minute mile, Roger Bannister believing in it. Yeah.
So I think that people can possibly have the ability to fly. And I think that perception kind of becomes reality. And basically with like the 4-minute mile, once everyone thought it was possible, it was possible. And I guess sometimes there's someone who has the will that's stronger to convince the rest of the population, to make them believe, and then everyone believes and it becomes more popular. So basically, like, I think flying is impossible because no one thinks it's possible. But I think if everyone in the world thought it was possible to fly, I think that there might be a possibility people could fly, like levitate a little. Does that make any sense at all?
The idea that you believe it makes sense. The former lawyer in me would argue profusely that man is not meant to fly. We could hop in a tin object or utilize magnetic forces, but and there's some magicians out there like David Blaine that may argue the difference, but I'm, whether you believe you can or you believe you can't, I'm in the can't category when it comes to that, Jeremy.
Yeah, no, I told you some weird shit I believe in, but we'll see. Hopefully the perception changes. We can test my theory eventually.
Yeah, but on another note, I brought up David Blaine a second ago, the magician. I was watching actually a podcast with him in it, and if you were to ask me before the podcast how long a human being can hold their breath for, I would think people would max out at a few minutes or something like that. And he was saying that he trained himself to be able to do it for more than 10. I think it was like 20 minutes. It was crazy, and he learned how to lower his heart rate and things like that. And but that is an example of, it may not be possible for me because I don't believe it. And because I don't believe it, I'm not willing to spend my time and energy to learning all those methods. Yeah. But because he believed it was possible, he invested such a long amount of time to be able to do this.
What about flying? What, you just aren't aware of what is needed to fly? What if it's like a quick breathe and you do this and you fly, but we just don't know?
Again, the lawyer.
Once we see David Blaine do it, you'll be like, oh, wow, you just got to go and you start flying.
Well, I think the lawyer in me would say, first, what's the definition of flying? Because
very true.
Because what you sound like says you're jumping and,
levitating. I think flying would be like flying. It would be like levitating. Like you can kind of get like 10 feet above air and like float a little.
Okay, because I feel like basketball players do that all the time.
Yeah, compared to us, basketball players are flying.
Yeah. Jeremy, I wish you best of luck on your flying endeavors. I will not be booking a trip with you anytime soon, it seems.
Yeah.
But yeah, I look forward to seeing how that serves you. And hey, if you do it, kudos to you. I'll definitely owe you one.
Similar though, on a serious note, is like with the breathing and stuff, I didn't think I could hold my breath really more than a minute. And about a year and a half ago, I did Wim Hof. I did like a training, and literally within 20 minutes of training, I was holding my breath for over 2 minutes. And 2 hours before, I would have been like, "There's no way in hell that I could do that." But you can. Like, and I'm sure I could show you how to do it within 20 minutes if I needed, which is pretty cool. But yeah, bodies are capable of some wild things once you like see the possibility.
Yeah, but the first thing that got you to that point though was the belief that at least it was possible. Maybe it wouldn't happen, but you were willing to do those breathing techniques and things. And that takes a little bit of courage. It takes a little bit of courage to be like, I don't know if this is going to work out, but hey, I'm going to give it a go. And you're talking about earlier about your brain being a heat-seeking missile or whatever the word you use, and your brain's going to make mistakes. It's just trying to like figure it out. Same things with accomplishing goals. Like you may get to the goal or you may get close to it, and it may turn out to not be all the bells and whistles you think it will, or it doesn't do anything for you. But what you learn along the way, either literally or just about yourself, about your ability to overcome things, is truly incredible. And one of the things, so like a little backstory on me real quick, a little story is I left actually being a lawyer at a law firm in New York City to move to Mexico for my startup. And one of the things that really was confusing to me, it never really made sense, is like people would like call me courageous for like doing something like this. But like for me, it was just like going about like living my life. But by doing it, I actually learned that I am not that risk averse. Like I have a higher tolerance for risk. Like I want to put myself out there. Like these things don't come across as like courageous to me. They just come across as, I only have so many good years on this earth. I never know what's going to happen to me. And I want to live a life that's interesting and full of possibilities. And so these things aren't courageous. They're just the logical side effect of me trying to do, whatever it is. And so I learned that about myself by having these goals and going about my life, and doing some reflection on it, that, hey, like, this is actually what gets me going, like being, taking on these risks and trying these new things and trying to make things happen. And it was just eye opening.
Yeah, no, and that goes back, I think, to just trust the process. Like,
Yeah.
it's you'll learn something. But I think I kind of actually do want to end on one thing. We won't talk about it, but at least we'll get it into the routine. Maybe if you like it, we'll continue it next week. But a cool book you recommend that had a big impact on you?
So if you're looking for a self-development book, the best book that I've read, that I've recommended to a number of people that they've given glowing reviews for, is called Superhuman by Habit. And it's by, I think it's like a one-name author called like Tyga, Superhuman. Let me just type it in real quick. Tynan, that's the author, Tynan. And it's like 120, maybe 130, really easy to read pages, broken up very differently. And the reason I really recommend it is, unlike other books that are about improvement or, whatever it is, mindset, this book is super pragmatic. And a couple of the things that I mean by that are, when you're trying to instill habits, one of the things it talks about is, when you're going to break a habit, here's a couple tricks that you can use, or to build a habit. These are a couple tricks that you can use to continue to get the ball rolling. One, if you are, it's something that you don't feel like doing that day, whether it's meditation or working out or whatever it is, and you go and you're like, you know what, I'm not going to do that today. Before you don't do it, just admit to yourself that you're not going to do it. Say in your head, and then say the reason why, and see how you react to that. And if a lot of the times when I was doing this, it was like, oh, I'm tired. I didn't have a chance to do this. I don't want to do this. I'll do it tomorrow, whatever. I just be like, well, why am I not going to do it? Because I'm lazy. And 9 out of 10 times, literally just telling myself, and again, it's about having that honesty and that integrity with your self-talk, telling myself, it's like, I'm not going to work out today because I'm lazy, or I don't want to clean up after I cook. That's why I'm going to order food in. Got myself to do it, because it's like, you know what? I don't want to be lazy. I don't want to be that person. And so, like, there's small tricks like that that don't require, keeping a journal and these tedious notes, or having a sponsor buddy or a coach. Like, there's small things like that in this book that is incredibly helpful for people that are looking to start building positive habits or get rid of negative habits. And that's why I recommend the book. It's Superhuman by Habit, by this author, Tynan, Tynan. And it's the most pragmatic guide to, no matter what your habit is, building it or getting rid of negative habits.
Dope. I like that a lot. I'm not going to give as much of a summary on mine, but I've mentioned it in the past hour, letting go. When I was going through a really tough time, after like a breakup from my last girlfriend 2 years ago, that is kind of what got me out of my rut. I listened to it, I think, like 14 times in a row, because when I listened to it, I just felt good, and like things made sense, and I knew how to tackle my emotions, whatever. Sometimes when I went off from it, I like wouldn't, and I'd just like go back, and it like kind of became my therapy. And there's a lot of cool like tools that I've picked up from it that I still use. So letting go, I think it's by like David Atkins. And I'll probably bring that up or mention it another time. But I love hearing what books influence people, and I like sharing what influenced me, because I think books are super impactful.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that is episode 2 of the Jack and Jared podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed, and we will see you guys next week.
All right. See you guys. Bye.